Okay, great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special joint committee meeting. Today is February 2nd. The joint committee meeting is the Planning, Economic Development Housing Committee and the Operation Management Budget General. I can't remember what the A stands for. We call it OMBGA committee meeting. This is a joint meeting, special meeting. And we have two items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is an item with from Mayor Bronin with accompanying resolution for the Shepard Park RHF Limited Partnership Tax Abatement. It was item 3.4 on the January 24th, 2022 agenda. Before I continue, I do need to introduce all the committee members. Councilwoman Rossetti, let's want to make sure the committee members are here. Councilman TJ Clark, Councilman Sanchez, and I'm sure Councilman Gayle is probably going to be joining us in a few minutes. Councilwoman Tiana Hercules. Don't know if anyone other the council person is on. But we also have with us Councilman Nick LeBron. Welcome, Councilman. I believe we do have a quorum with both committees. Who do we have from the Department of Development Services to talk to us about the first item on the agenda?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name's Tone Nelson, and I will present or testify on behalf of the resolution before us today for Shepard Park, with the hopes that the council committee will find it favorable and recommend a approval of the abatement as written, or of the resolution as written.
Okay, yes, sir. Please go right ahead.
Okay. If I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce, I'll do the standard, which is I'll give you a brief history of the project.
Sure.
I'll read through the resolution for the listening audience and introduce the applicant and the property representative and open it up for questioning.
Yes, sir. Please go right ahead.
Okay. So Shepard Park is a 373 unit development in the west end of Hartford, designed for and designated as elderly housing. The property is supported by a HUD rental assistance contract, which subsidizes the rent for those who are eligible to, who meet the criteria of eligibility, so that they're 62 and older, or I always like to call it challenged versus disabled. But for those who are challenged, who might meet the criteria for.
No, thank you so very much for using that terminology. Thank you.
Okay. Brief history of the project. If you've received my impact summary, you'll know that the building is 373 units dispersed among 7 properties. Initially, when this property was rehabbed through a private public venture between the original developer and the city of Hartford, the original developer rehabbed the existing properties, 2 buildings there, to include, I believe it was 130 units, and then improve or constructed 2 additional structures to include 200 and some odd units, bringing the total number of units to 373. This particular property has been, it was originally constructed in the early 1900s by the Church of the Good Shepherd, and it was used as a shelter for women or housing for women. Somewhere in the 70s, what I suspect as a result of the culmination of the popularity of the automobile, the creation of the highway system, and the construction of newer apartments in the area, led to this property to be somewhat, I believe, underfunded in terms of what they could collect for rent, and therefore we saw it kind of go into this disparity of dilapidation and neglect. And I say that because I know when I think about it, the Clemens Place, which neighbors this property, abuts this property, went through something very similar. So in approximately 1979, I believe, the city of Hartford provided a 40-year tax abatement agreement to the then owner of the facility. The facility was then sold to Shepard Park, the current owner, in 2010. They have complied with the requirements under the mortgage note, which is basically funding from CHFA, which requires the property to remain affordable as designed until 2092. The property also has a lease agreement with the city for the raw land that it sits on. And part of the agreement requires that the property be, the owners pay the city a rent annual lease payment. The lease payment is calculated as such as it's $300 per unit plus 50% of any net revenue. So net revenue meaning after all the expenses are paid, after all of the reserves have been escrowed, and any other cash outlays the property would have to take on or perform under the operation agreement. And what we're asking for your favorable recommendation to council for today, if I may read through the resolution, is that the city grant a 10-year tax abatement, and the agreement shall begin in July of 2022 and end in January, or actually June 30th of 2032. The owner shall pay the following taxes, which is basically $400 per year for the initial year. Taxes will increase by 1.5% every year. All increases will be permanent and cumulative. The units remain affordable as required by the financing instrument, which is the CHFA mortgage. That the owner invest $2.1 million in capital improvements and repairs. This is to be done in the next 3 years. During the construction period, that the owner comply with Article 12, Section 2, 680, which is the need to requirement that the owner reserve 15% of all construction costs be awarded to city approved, certified, and minority and women-owned businesses and enterprises, that they meet the 30% of Hartford resident requirement. For those businesses must employ at least 30% of Hartford residents, and 15% of the work be done by women and minority trade workers. So the electricians and the plumbers, carpenters, the skilled trades. And I was hoping Councilman Gayle was here because this was encouraged by him. And
No, are we talking about the
additional community benefit?
Yes.
This was
I'm surprised he's not here.
Encouraged.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
He had to drive home, so he will be on within in a matter of a couple of minutes.
All right, so we'll wait for him. We won't vote on this because I know
Okay.
he has to have something to say about this.
Yeah.
Continue, sir.
So this was encouraged by him and supported by the Director of Development Services, that we have asked that or required the property owner or the applicant make a one-time contribution to the Department of Development Services as part of the agreement for it's to be used at its discretion for neighborhood development. And again, that's the Director of Development Services will determine what the best use is for that money.
Mhm.
Then typically,
let me interrupt you, but would that money be spent in that neighborhood?
generally that is the target, that is the plan. So if there's nothing that again, it's at the director's discretion. So if there's something happening where he thinks the money will be, the funds will be useful and helpful in creating a design or implementing whatever it is that is going on in that neighborhood, that's what I'm certain he will do. But I don't want to speak for him. But I know that was the plan, and that's what we discussed initially.
Okay.
And then, of course, that any funds raised by the owner, other than money raised to do the capital improvements, be subject to the 10% recapture. And a tax abatement shall be non-assignable, non-transferable without written consent and approved by the Committee on Abatement of Taxes and signed by the mayor. This clause, the agreement will automatically transfer and enter to the benefit of any party proceeding to the interest of the owner. As a result of a mortgage foreclosure. So basically saying the bank that funds the project will be entitled to any benefits of the agreement if they should have to reclaim the property through foreclosure.
But they won't be able to transfer to anyone else.
No, it won't. It would have to be approved by council.
Okay.
And by the committee. In this case, in the case of default, the city shall retain the right to cancel the agreement, as a remedy shall include the payment of abated taxes. If the owner fails to execute the abatement forwarded within 90 days, then the abatement may no longer be available and could be withdrawn. And that's the body of the requirements, the language, the requiring language of the and the abatement. And when I sent over, what we anticipate happening is that based on the 2020, the current revalve, which will be effective, impact the 2023 fiscal year, that the taxes on this property will most likely double. So we've come with the way we underwritten this particular agreement is so that the property, like most, can meet its debt coverage ratio requirements, as well as the fiscal requirements of maintaining the property. The property has been well maintained over the last 40 years. I know we sent out an inspector. We inspect these properties annually. The last time we sent out an inspector, which was 2 years ago because of COVID, we were hard pressed to find any violations or any noted deficiencies. So they do a good job of maintaining the facility. I think that this property will benefit greatly by having the taxes fixed in a way that allows them to continue to maintain the property as is, as well as improve it, and continue to improve it. With that said, Madam Chair, I have nothing else. I'd like to introduce Brian Tewksbury. Brian is the CFO of the partnership. And we had Shelby Jackson, who was a consultant for the partnership and helped submit the application and was instrumental in providing me with a lot of information that I need in order to conduct the research. So with that said, I'd like to open up the floor to questions so that you may have of me, may have of Mr. Tewksbury, and if Shelby's still here, please.
Mr. Tewksbury, first let us apologize for their lateness. We had another committee meeting, just ran over. If you would like to, let us know your involvement, why you're doing this, for your, why you investing in this property here?
So we work for a company where private company, but we're definitely mission driven. We have about 5,500 apartment units under management. We have some other ones in the city of Hartford, also Capitol Towers, that's owned by the same group that's owned by Shepard Park. Shepard Park is a faith-based not-for-profit out of California that we've partnered with and done. We have about 2,500 units that we've developed with them throughout New England, and they're big proponents of affordable housing. They have about 20,000 units across the country, and they're very mission-driven that everyone should have a place that's called a home. And they're very proud of their property in Hartford and Shepard Park and also Capitol Towers over there. But we as a company, like, we try to be partners with the cities and states that we do business in. Our loans with CHFA. So unfortunately for us, we don't really have a lot of wiggle room to restructure the loan as it's structured through CHFA. We, as Tone did a great job explaining the property, I mean, we try to maintain our properties at a high level so that the people are proud to live there. And we've found that by investing in the properties, the people care for them a little more, and we've had better results with our residents that they treat them like a home. So if we have some people that are not being kind to the property, they tend to get pushed out because their neighbors don't want them there. So, and we really see that at Shepard Park. I mean, it's just the whole grounds and everything about it, we feel is well run. So, and I mean, last year we did have to pay the 1-year gap payment, which was a lot. And through the help of the city, we worked through that and we made that payment. And we hope the agreement as presented by Tone will be a benefit. Obviously, it'll be a benefit to our community and a benefit to the city of Hartford at large.
If I may, Madam Chair, let me also say that we have received approximately 43 or so letters, handwritten letters, scribed letters from the tenants there, speaking in favor or on behalf of the operation and the management team, and how happy they were with the conditions and the fact that their needs were being met and met timely. If there was ever a reason for something to happen, at least they could call it. And I know that the property manager there has probably been the same person for 4 or 5 years at least.
Yeah, April's been there a long time now.
Yeah. So that continuity just helps with tenant retention, help with the relationship between the tenants. And again, like I said, the 40 some odd letters, I don't remember how many because we received them about 4 or 5 months ago. I did read through the bulk of them, and they just had a glowing review of the management company, of the ownership, and they expressed how happy they were and how satisfied they were with the condition of the property and living there. I do know that property continues to operate at about 98%, which is great considering at any given moment the targeted population could possibly have a need to move or do something else. Something else could affect the situation, in which will increase the vacancy rate to a point that's well below textbook. And even if it does happen, my understanding is they have a 2-year wait list there, Brian?
Yeah, at least. And our biggest goal is to allow people to age where they want. So we have resident service coordinators that can help facilitate our residents get the services they need so that they can continue to live independently as long as they are able to. And like all these services are additional, and like through our Section 8 contract and everything, it all helps with this. But by getting a tax abatement, it allows us to provide those additional services, such as like bingo and yoga and all this stuff for the residents to stay active and just to foster that community that they have there.
Wonderful. I may have to move in. You guys got bingo and yoga. Wow, this is great. Not sure if Mr. Jackson would like to add anything before I open the floor for questions from the council members.
And I neglected to mention that, I'm sorry, Shelby, that the property is located on land leased from the city. So the city is actually the landowner. It's approximately 14 acres.
You did say that, and you did tell us how
Oh,
much
okay.
you are getting from the lease.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Jackson?
you, Madam Chairwoman. I really have nothing to add except to say, really been a pleasure working with Mr. Nelson. He did a very thorough job throughout the process, and I think you're seeing the results of that tonight. Not familiar personally with the property, I would encourage you or any members of the committee and council in that area to take a drive by. It really does provide a very safe and wholesome and healthy environment for the residents there. And as Brian said, they are mission driven. We want to work in partnership with the city, continue to ensure that it remains. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any council members, comments, questions? Please just speak up because I can't see everyone.
Madam Chair, John Gayle.
Oh, Councilman Gayle, we were waiting for you.
My apologies for jumping on late. I moved
No,
venues.
no, sir. We were definitely was not going to have any action until we get your comment on this.
Well, probably not necessary, but I will say I'm very familiar with the project. It's in my neighborhood. I watched it be developed 40 years ago, and it has, as has been represented, it's definitely an asset in the neighborhood, and I personally know a lot of people that live there and have lived there over time. So I've been very pleased with the management over the years and with the way the property's been kept up. One question, and I apologize, I'm sure it was mentioned earlier and I missed it. This, I guess, for Tone Nelson. I see that the agreement is to start him off with $400,000 a year payment. What's the current payment right now, if I may?
The current taxes, good afternoon, good evening, Councilman Gayle. The current taxes on the property are $1,413,296.
But before, on our previous agreement, they were between 200 and 250 on any given year for the calculation. That $1 million was a 1-year gap payment.
Right. The taxes paid under the abatement were about $280,000, give or take. And because of the way there's a formula that was applied to this particular property, which required a fixed payment of $300 per unit, and then I believe it was 5% or 10% of anything, I'm sorry, 4% of anything above the initial scheduled rents. So in this case, let's say the rents are $1 million when the abatement was first executed. And today the rents, the effective gross rents are $10 million. They would be responsible for paying 4% of the difference between the $1 million and the $10 million, or 4% of $9 million, which would be about $320,000 if that was the case. So, and that's not what they paid. I'm just saying, it's trying to explain how the formula was, what the taxes were calculated based on this particular formula. So there was a base tax of so many dollars per unit, and then a percentage of any increase over the initial scheduled rent. So it would fluctuate, and it would go from about 250 to 280, depending on how much rent was actually collected in that particular year. Okay,
so but for the 1 year anomaly where they paid actually sort of market rent taxes, yes. They've been under a tax abatement that was they were last paying somewhere around $300,000 a year, if I understand.
Right. About 250, 280.
Okay, and now we're going up to 400. So
that's correct.
We bettered our situation here, and they're going to increase by 1.5% per year.
Yes.
After. Okay, thank you very much.
We do also pay about 120-ish additional for the ground lease payment too. So that's on top of the tax also.
Right. The ground lease payment is also calculated. Is also calculated by a formula that's very similar to the abatement. which is, again, it requires them to pay $300 per unit, so about $119,000 per year. And I believe it's 50% of any net revenue. So any
I think it's
monies,
like 112,900 is the 373 times 300, and then it's plus an overage.
right.
Wow.
So as the property
Thank you.
performs better, as property performs and performs well, the city again is in a position to collect additional revenue as a result of the lease agreement.
Any other council questions? One of the things also, I was looking through the presentation, Mr. Nelson, you mentioned that the property has been maintained and it has been kept up all the years, and I know where the properties I've driven by it. So from the outside driving by, I do have to commend, from what I've seen, the property looks great from driving by. But there is I think $1.2 million. They're planning on investing for renovation of the property over the next 3 years.
Yes, it's actually 2 million.
I'm sorry, is it 2 million? I can't remember. I remember reading it.
Let me just take a look and see what it is.
I'm sorry, yeah, 2,170,000.
Yeah, well, because what we have is I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I think despite like how the property looks, it's still an old property, so it just needs constant investment, whether it be the slate roof, which is expensive. At this stage, we're trying to just renovate hallways that haven't been done in a long time, so those are expensive, and just keep the place up, because I mean, you could leave a lot of these things into perpetuity, but then it's just going to detract from everyone's experience of living there, because like they need constant investment. So I mean, we figured the property needs at least like $1,000 per unit per year, so that's close to 400 grand, but then it needs those additional items too, just to keep it in the condition that the residents expect.
Right, because most major systems, Madam Chair, will last for about 25 years. That's the life expectancy. Mm-hmm. So if you put in a boiler, if you put in a HVAC, a condenser for air conditioning, those things are expected to last a certain number of years. And that's why they call them capital improvements, because it's more than just maintenance. Maintenance would be, okay, the apartment becomes empty, we come in, we clean it, we paint it, we upgrade the cabinets, we upgrade the countertops, and so on and so forth. These are large ticket items. So for example, you go in, and I'm not saying this is what Shepard Park is planning to do, but you go in and you upgrade the windows, replace the windows, because if you bought windows 40 years ago, and I know I have windows in my house that I put in 20 years ago that are now not the most energy efficient windows. So I would, those windows, in order to maintain the efficiency of the home, should be replaced. However, as I tell all those guys who call me and say, hey, you want new windows? I said, listen, I did it once, I'm not doing it again. But in this case, this is a rental property, it's an investment, and you have to maintain the investment in order for the asset, in order for it to continue to produce. So,
okay, thank you for that. So, sure. I mean, you said there was a gap payment that were made,
yes.
Between the time of the agreement and a new agreement. And you also, I remember, if I remember correctly, we are going through reval, and new tax numbers are going to be coming starting July 1st. Did you build that into all this equation?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. We considered this, the impact on the reval on the property will be mute, right? Because that's why we've gone through the abatement agreement process in order to fix the taxes, so to allow the property to maintain it, to be sustainable and the condition that is in. So what will happen is there will be the abatement will be a larger abatement based on the dollar, let me say this, the dollar value of the abatement will be larger. However, the tax payment, as you can see, that the city will be entitled to under the agreement has also increased. So, which is a reflection of the fact that the property is earning more money and capable of paying more. But no, that shows the reval will have no impact on the property per se, unless of course they turn around and decide to sell it, and then the abatement is non-transferable at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, sir.
In the way the deal's structured, we really can't sell it. And RHF, the owner's in it for the long haul. So
Thank you, Brian. Any questions, statements? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a resolution and a motion on the floor? Can someone make a motion?
Yes, I'd
Hello?
like to make a motion to send it to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Second. Thank you, thank you, Councilman Sanchez. I know we're all a little bit getting tired. So there is a motion on the floor and it's been second. Any questions, concerns? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any abstention? Hearing none. The committee is recommending, and I believe both committees have voted, if I remember correctly. Councilman Clark?
Aye.
Thank you. Just want to make sure we have both committee, the OMB and the PDNH committee members voting. That we will favorably send this back to the next council meeting. Congratulations, Mr. Nelson, for your presentation.
Thank you,
It
Madam
was
Chair.
very understandable.
Thank
You so very much for doing so. And I cannot pronounce Brian's name, so I'm not even going to try. So thank you, Brian, for your commitment and the upkeep of your building in the city.
no, thank you for your time tonight, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we have let me get to the second item. Oh, what did I do with it? Oh, geez. Well, I know of another item and I am trying to get to my agenda for the second item, which I just lost on the screen. Wow, can't believe I lost it. I certainly did lose the second item on the agenda. Okay, the second item on the agenda, found it. It's accompanying resolution from Mayor Bronin authorizing to enter into a tax abatement agreement with Westbrook Housing. It was item 3.6 on the January 24, 2022 council agenda. And who do we have from Development Service to talk on this item? Is that going to be you again, Mr. Tone?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm making up for lost time.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to present to you guys since October, so I'm making up for lost time here.
Well, it's lovely to see. It's lovely to have you with us again, sir. So let us know. Tell us about this item.
Okay. Westbrook Village Housing 4 LLC is the owners of the fourth phase of the Westbrook Village development, redevelopment, now being rebranded as the Village at Park River. I believe you guys have toured that facility, maybe under the first or second abatement.
The second.
Second, okay. So it's what they're planning. The intentions are here is to develop, newly construct 60 units of residential housing, 45 of which will be deemed affordable under the tax credit laws and guidelines, and 15 will be market rate. Now, in addition to the new 60 units that they're planning on building, the other amenities are part of a previous phase. So there is a clubhouse going in that's part of phase 3. There is walking trails that are part of phase 1, 2, and 3. And I happen to notice that on the master development plan, there's something called a splash park, which is part of phase 4. There's a total of 7 residential phases. So, and I believe the phase 6 involves home ownership, which is what's on the master plan at the moment. So phase 4 is basically the improvement of 6.2 acres of the 39-acre lot that's presently owned by the Hartford Housing Authority and leased to the developers for a period of 65 years. There were a few individuals that were planning to attend from the Penrose development and cloud development companies, but I guess they were unable to make it. So if you saw my...
We're here, Tone.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
the Cloud and Penrose are in attendance, Madam Chair.
Oh, they
I
are.
don't know if you
Oh,
can see
wonderful.
them.
Oh, okay. I didn't see them. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you. Thank you,
great.
madam.
Yeah. So what's a little different about this particular abatement? I'm sorry. First of all, let me stay the course here, and I'll read through the resolution, and then we'll talk about the anticipated tax collection, and of course, I'll introduce the 2 applicants, the representatives of the applicant, and open it up for questions. So the term of the agreement is for 15 years. It's going to run coterminous with the compliance period of the tax credits. And of course, it will begin as soon as there is a TCO, a temporary certificate of occupancy, issued on the property. So they'll pay a proportionate share of taxes going forward. In year 1, the developer will pay $78,668 a year total for the 60 units. Year 2, it will be subject. Year 2, it will be the tax payment will be subject to 1.66% increase, which will become permanent and cumulative, and that shall go on for the remainder of the abatement. During the term of the abatement, all units are to remain affordable, or the affordable units are to remain as prescribed, affordable as prescribed by the low-income housing tax credits. The owner will comply with all ordinance codes, the United States, the state of Connecticut, the city of Hartford, and operation and management of the premises. Again, it will be non-assignable, abatement will be non-assignable, non-transferable, without approval of the Committee of Abatement and Abatement of Taxes and Assessments, and signed by the mayor. Again, this will automatically transfer to someone who has financial interest in the property as a result of foreclosure or some other reason or means of collecting, taking title to the property. So, for example, the tax credit investors may want to assume full responsibility as a result of some event. Not likely, but it's possible. The future sale of the property or refinance, the city's entitled to 10% recapture of the net sales proceeds, not to exceed the total amount of the abated taxes. During the construction, the developer will have to comply with the HAP with the affirmative action plan, hiring plan of the city of Hartford, the HAP, Article 12, Section 2, 680. And again, higher 15% of the total construction cost has to go toward city certified minority and women-owned businesses. 15% of the total construction project cost has to be performed by minority and women trade workers. No less than 30% of the total project work hours to be worked by the Hartford residents. And as part of the community benefit, developer will make a one-time contribution in the amount of $30,000 to the Department of Development Services, again, to be used at its discretion for neighborhood development. And in the case of default, the agreement will be canceled, and the remedy will be to pay all abated taxes. That, again, is the gist of the agreement of the resolution and the terms of the resolution. And what I'd like to do at this time, Madam Chair, is introduce Anthony Hilas, who is with the cloud company. He's one of the developers. And is Rio on, Anthony?
Yes, he's on as well.
Okay. And Rio, he's a developer representative of Penrose. So those two organizations in collaboration are developing the property, redeveloping the site as we discussed.
Mr. Who's it? Mr. Hilas, do you
Yes, ma'am.
have any comments you would like to add to the presentation?
No, other than I'd just like to thank you all for your time and energy and effort into seeing this through. Much appreciated.
Okay. And what I cannot pronounce Rio's last name, so I'm not even going to try.
Hi, Madam Chair. It's Sacchetti.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, just to reiterate what my colleague Anthony had said. Thank you to the committee. Of course, thank you, Tone, for all your work getting us here tonight, and Brian and the Department of Development Services.
I'll open the floor to any questions, comments from our committee members and guests.
If I may, Madam, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Nelson, go right ahead, sir.
Sure. The council approved the previous phases, 1 through 3, over the past 2.5 years, I believe it is.
Yes, sir.
Now I've had one of the things I was hoping to do, Madam Chair, is obtain the reports from LPC Tracker from the Procurement Services Division to report on how the organization has continued to meet the HAP requirements in terms of the hiring. And I speak quite frequently with the compliance manager, who is Aloy Toppin. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and he informs me that they continue to meet the requirement of the HAP and have made great efforts to do so.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Councilman Gubb, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, I take it that what we're approving tonight is for a particular phase.
Yeah.
We're not readjusting the existing tax abatements on the earlier phases, correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell us, and you break it down for us to give us approximate, actually, it doesn't sound like approximate, it sounds like to the penny, how much they're going to be paying per unit.
Yes. Well,
can you tell us how much they're paying per unit in the earlier phases?
Sure. I'm not sure if, Councilman, if you received my summary impact memorandum, which talks about what they're paying for the
I don't have it with me.
Okay. So in the previous phases, they're paying an average annual tax of $102,000 for the first phase, which is 75 units, $70,000 for the second phase, which involved 60 units, $88,000 for the third phase, which involved the construction of 65 units. So all in all, between the 4 projects, the 3 that are either under construction or have completed construction, and the 4th that is to begin construction upon the approval of the abatement, there will be a total of 260 units under construction or completed. The total taxes collected average by from the 4 phases will total approximately $349,497 and to the penny 90 cents. Based on our current estimations of what the taxes are. Well, there's no guess of what the taxes are because the taxes paid are what we are quoting. No, I take that back because the other units, the other phases, they have market rate units that are not part of the abatement. So those may fluctuate. But at the moment, what we're looking at is over the court, the average tax payment collected from the 4 phases is $350,000.
So I apologize for not
year.
having looked at this sooner, but I do see, I do have some of your memorandum.
Okay.
And it talks about phase 1, 75 units, 1362.26 per unit,
Yes.
right? Phase 2, 60 units, 1173 per unit.
Yes.
Phase 3, 65 units, 1473 per unit.
Yes.
Phase 4, comparable, 1475 per unit.
Right.
And so, and again, I apologize for not being on top of this. That's the first 4 phases. What phases are we approving tonight or looking to approve tonight?
Approving phase 4, Councilman.
Phase 4.
Yes.
Okay. Well, here it says 1475 per unit, but I think your resolution lowers it somewhat.
Oh, it says 78,000. And I believe you're correct.
So so here's a question for you.
Mhm.
From the time that phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 got started to tonight, the entire city went through a reval. And the net effect of the reval was to demonstrate that multifamily properties increased in value citywide. I don't have the assessor's data off the top of my head, but I know it for single families and 2 families and 3 families. I think 3 families went up an average of 40. It was over 40% that they went up.
Yes.
And so that, you know, that's saying that the market value of all these and the ability for them to collect rents, et cetera, is really gone up. Wouldn't that call for this? I mean, since this is brand new construction and some of it is market, or at least it's not all very low, very low income,
Right.
More workforce income in many cases. Wouldn't that call for a bit of an increase in taxes here, comparable to what the rest? I mean, I got my tax assessment, and for the rest of us that own our properties, we've seen that we're all going up. So wouldn't that call for a little increase for these guys?
Well, first of all, let me say this, Councilman. What we were looking at, and I was referring to the numbers, and you said it's about 1475 a unit. That's on a 10-year average. Okay, that's a 15-year average. So the average tax collected over the 15 years is about $1,475 per unit.
That's with the 1.66% increase per year built in.
Yes. Yes. So the way we calculate the taxes, I do suspect that the taxes on any of these properties are going to increase by 175%. So the market rate taxes are going to go up. Now, the way we calculate the taxes on these abatements is we look at what the property can afford to pay based on the rents collected. Now, the rents have gone up a little bit because each year CHFA and HUD increase the fair market value rent or the tax credit rents permissible to be collected under the specific guidelines as a result of income increase. The wages earned by that segment of the population. So there has been an increase in this property for this particular phase. Again, the market rate units, what we suspect is taxes will increase by 176% based on some of the variables that are being considered by the assessor to calculate the value of the property, which will ultimately result in the taxes. And why I wouldn't prove here is because in the earlier phases, the market rate units are excluded from any abatement. In this particular case, the market rate units will be included under the abatement. For the reason we suspect, I estimate the taxes on that particular unit, on the particular property, will go up for one unit will be about $4,700. And they're currently, so the purpose of putting this together was to show that on average, we are still collecting the same amount of money, if not more. And again, it depends on how many units there are. And so if you look at the first phase, there's 75 units. So we're collecting more taxes. And because the property itself generates more money, which creates a higher value. So
yeah,
there has been,
I'm sort of following it, but at the same time, what the reval has told us is that because a lot of these landlords are collecting Section 8 rents. I mean, their rental stream is not going to be a whole lot different than the rental stream for Westbrook here. And yet with that rental stream, we're being told that the values of these properties have gone up dramatically. Yet, I mean, your phase 4 is virtually identical to phase 3.
Right.
And so, I'm not sure whether we shouldn't take a second look or actually, let me ask it another way. Do we ever do these tax abatements for a shorter period of time as opposed to 10 years, do them for a 5-year period so we get a second look at things?
Generally, while I've been involved with this process, no. In this case, we generally do them for 10 years. Most abatements are for 10 years. In cases where there's a tax credit associated with it, then we try to run it, the abatement coterminous with the tax credit period. The issue with this particular phase, Councilman, is that the cost of running the property, of building the property, has gone up. These Anthony and Rio can elaborate on that, but as you may be aware, the cost of material and supplies has gone up tremendously over the last 7 months. Forget about the last 2 years. So the cost to build it, which means now they have a higher debt that they have to satisfy and carry. So they cannot necessarily afford to, when we do the underwriting, which is based on the coverage ratio, it all amounts out to about the 1.16%. Therefore, the taxes are going to be very similar.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I didn't take that into consideration. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you very much for all that.
My pleasure.
Any other question, Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, I've been definitely trying to keep up with this conversation, but I think I found myself at a loss. So I will ask Councilman Gayle, can you just sum up the basic and the main piece of this resolution so that we can move forward on this? If not, should there be another presentation with more, with a better understanding on the technical parts of it?
Well, I can tell you what my understanding is. The document we have in front of us indicates the starting taxes per unit somewhere north of $1,300 per unit, which is not very far off from we just did the one for Shepard Park, which
right.
Roughly Shepard Park came to a little under $1,400 per unit. By my reckoning, and that was a really gross average because I was just using some very round figures. So this looks to be in the ballpark of Shepard Park. Tone did provide us with, since this is phase 4, he did provide us with the numbers for phase 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And in looking at those numbers, they start a little bit lower, but phase 3 was right about at the same amount as this one, about 1475, and the 1475 is a higher number because they're averaging it over 10 years. So let me just back up and say my understanding, and Tone, you correct me where I'm wrong here, is that the first year it's 1360 or something like that, but then every year it's going to go up by 1.6%.
That's
So
correct.
if you take that first year plus the second year plus the third year, you take it all the way to the 10th year and you average it, we're going to get an average of $1,475 per unit over the 10 years.
That's
And
correct, Councilman.
I did raise a question, but as to why wasn't more, but Tone quite appropriately pointed out, and I'm sure the cloud company and Penrose were happy to hear it, that their construction costs had gone up pretty dramatically, and
Right.
so it's not as though they're going to be making, they're not making any more money on the deal. It's costing them more money to construct, which they're borrowing, paying off over time. So when our staff did the numbers, they felt this was reasonable. So I'm feeling it's reasonable on that basis. Does that sum it up for you?
So basically, this formula is to compensate for the difference in inflation, and at the end, it'll equal out. Is that what I'm understanding?
The 1475 just
Right.
is what they're going to pay.
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
Okay.
Over the 15 years. It's a 15-year average.
Oh, I'm sorry, 15 years.
Yeah. So it'll start out, as Councilman Gayle mentioned, around $1,300 per unit. It will gradually increase by 1.66% every year to the 15th year. And at the end of the 15th year, the average tax, or the tax per unit, let's take a quick look here. Will be $1,386.43.
Right, but then the earlier stages, that's to offset the higher cost of the materials and construction, right?
Right, and the debt is long term, Councilman. So these Anthony and Rio may be able to address that, but the mortgage is what are you guys paying? Is this a 20-year, 15-year loan, 30-year loan? I can't remember exactly. Anthony, Rio, if you don't mind, let me just take a look at what I have here.
It's a 20-year loan,
20-year
Tone.
loan.
And
Okay.
the 15 years specifically is required because of the low-income housing tax credits, which is that 15-year compliance period.
Okay. I understand now. I got a little lost, but I'm back on track.
No,
thank you, Madam Chair.
No, you're welcome, sir. I think the summary pages that Tone sends over, that is what helped me to comprehend what the numbers were, and in comparison to all 3 or 4 phases. So, Tone, that was a huge help in looking at those numbers and comparing it to see the taxes to be paid. So,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
really good presentation. Thank you so very much for doing that, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, and any comments? Hearing none, would
Move to
someone?
send it back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Great. We've got a motion and it's a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we got an additional committee member voting with us. Welcome, committee member.
Aye, did you hear me?
Oh, yes, Councilman, Majority Leader Clark, we heard you. Thank you very much, sir. Any abstention?
Chairwoman, I need to recuse myself.
Thank you, Council
President. Thank you.
Council President Rosado. Thank you so very much. The High Hazard Council to send back favorably to the our upcoming council meeting a favorable recommendation for approval. The ayes have it, no abstention, and our assistant will make sure in the write-up, Council President, that it shows that you abstain from vote.
That will be recused.
I'm sorry, I lost connection. Was you talking to me?
No, I think we lost.
I think
Shirley.
Chairwoman Surgeon is frozen.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'll take over. Since we don't have any other items to discuss, we can consider this special PEDH and OMBGA meeting now concluded.
Thank
So
you,
we are-
Majority Leader.
Majority
your
Leader,
time.
just, we did vote, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we did. We all set.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, members.
Thank
of
you,
the
Go ahead.
committee.
Majority
Good night.
Leader.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tom. Great job.
Thank you.